So Glenn Drury, the preference whisperer, which is very well known in Victoria, has come out with an article last night basically saying what his predictions are for the election tomorrow in New South Wales. And I couldn't help but just laugh at this. It's hilarious. So I'm going to wait for people to come on, but he goes through the entire upper house ballot and he ends up making his predictions and walking you through who's who in the zoo. Now, before I get into that, just a reminder, how to vote cards for Turning Point. If you want them, they're at tpaust.com.au. They're in the description. But without further ado, this is what's going on. So do you guys remember that preference whisperer guy, the cash for preferences, the guy that negotiates a lot of the party's preferences in Victoria? This guy, Glenn Drury. So he ended up not quite having a huge impact in New South Wales election. A lot of the parties, they didn't work as much with him as much as they did in Victoria. And he wrote an article last night detailing what he thinks going to happen in the election tomorrow, specifically for the upper house. And I thought you guys might find this particularly interesting. This is what he looks like. If some of you didn't, if you know him by face, preference whisperer, Glenn Drury. Let's get into it. So he wrote an article for the New Daily and it reads, Glenn Drury, who's in the New South Wales upper house election race. And what he does is he goes through every single person on the large white ballot, and I couldn't help but laugh. This is how it reads. Let's take a leisurely stroll through the ballot paper for New South Wales New South Wales elective council election and acquaint ourselves with some of the candidates. It's worth noting that since the so-called electoral reforms to the upper house in 1999, it has become increasingly challenging for ordinary people to secure a win in the election. I thought that line was hilarious because what he's saying is it's shut him out. He says ordinary people, but the election rules have shut him out basically. And so what I see when I look at this particular article is I see a situation where Glenn is particularly upset with the fact that he's unable to make an impact on the large white ballot. And so this is my real ballot. This is the white ballot. And he ends up going through from start to finish all the people on the ballot. And so this is how it reads. Group A includes Lyle Sheldon, a well-known figure in the religious right, who campaigned against same-sex marriage and is the former managing director of the Australian Christian Lobby. So that's Group A. That's the very first one here. Group B, Craig Kelly, the pin-up boy for the sovereign citizens cults and the far-right cookers is in this group. Craig failed to nominate 15 candidates, which has resulted in him not having an above-the-line box on the ballot paper, despite having his own column. This means that the voters who want to support him will need to number the candidate below the line, dramatically reducing his already slim chances of winning. Silvana Nile of Group G, the wife of former veteran MLC Fred Nile, puts a few other relatively unknown candidates, and they've also opted for this strategy. So basically, he's saying Craig Kelly, Group B, Silvana Nile, Group G, basically very unlikely to get up. Probably won't get up. It's basically impossible to get up below the line. The most someone's got below the line was Jammal in the 2019 state election. There was a big campaign to vote below the line. I think he got 140,000 votes or something, which was like a quarter of what he needed. So completely off. He goes on. Glenn Drury, by the way, Group C. Nestled among the far-right extremists and fresh from an Orwellian convention are the herbivores of animal justice. If these sushi-loathing ideologues can manage to keep their disagreements private, they may very well find themselves vying for the final seat. I'm sensing some tension here, Glenn Drury. So what he's basically saying here is the Animal Justice Party, there's a lot of salt there. In Victoria, they started to adopt his services, and when he submitted their how to vote cards, their group voting ticket for Victoria, the Animal Justice Party at the very last minute screwed Glenn Drury, and so that completely messed up a lot of his algorithms, numbering, deals with other parties, And so if you're sensing a bit of tension with regards to Group C, the way he talks about it in this article, that's why. And so it's particularly funny for me to watch because it's like he doesn't want the animal justice to get up, but there's a very good chance that they might get up. Anyway, moving on. Group D is the Labour Party. Labour, a party founded by some shearers taking a break under a tree, has managed to establish itself as a fixture in urban working class areas, solely for the purpose of blocking the Greens Party influence. It's pretty self-explanatory. He's quite, somewhat friendly to the Labour Party, but that's it. Group F, this is the Socialist Alliance, won by the Socialist Alliance. However, if this organisation genuinely believes in the principles that it espouses, it should urge its followers to give equal preference to all candidates. I just thought that was really funny because it's like he's talking about equality of outcome. And so it's a bit of a jab at the lefties. So Glenn isn't so far left that he agrees with the socialists. Group H, Elizabeth Farrelly Independents, the Teals. And he just wrote, who? I don't know why he's salty about them. Maybe it's because they haven't adopted his services. Who knows? But definitely some tension there. Group I compromises two Australian political parties, the Liberal Party and the Nationals. The Liberal Party was founded by Robert Menzies with the aim of representing the middle class, but over time it has transformed into a party that mainly serves the interests of the wealthy. The Nationals, on the other hand, are seen as the less affluent relatives of the Liberal Party, based in rural areas. The Nationals are generally well-behaved and tend to follow the direction of their leaders. It's pretty glowing. By the way, after we finish these groups, he does give us some numbers about where he sees the upper house going, and that's the really interesting part. Group J, this is the Liberal Democrat Party. A factional war within the Liberal Democrats has seriously destabilised the party, and it has moved the Libertarian Party to become a more conservative one. John Ruddick dumping by the Libertarian faction as lead candidate causes a factional punch-up that evidently saw him reinstated by his now dominant Conservative gang, as he heads the party's ticket. Given the internal problems and the poor position of the Liberal Democrats on the ballot, the party could struggle to win a seat. I thought that was pretty funny. A few people are eager to hear about their one. It's coming up. They're all coming up. Group L. In the middle of the pack is the Public Education Party. This is an interesting one. The group might just be the underdog to watch out for this election. Why is that, Glenn? Are you helping them out? The party was started by teachers, school principals, and other public education advocates. The Public Education Party is taking a bold stance against the rampant subsidies given to elite private schools and is demanding that taxpayer funds be redirected back to public education. I don't know about that. That one's, I don't know. Glenn, are these people that you're backing in this election? Are they adopting your services? I don't know. I guess we'll see. The underdogs, he describes them as. Group M, the Informed Medical Options Party, who are known for their anti-jab stance. They are distinct from the other so-called freedom parties and various groups of the far right who are also running as grouped independents, highlighting the divisions within the extreme right and conspiratorial movement that have blossomed since COVID. It's like, okay, whatever. Group O, featuring the controversial former Greens MP, Jeremy Buckingham, blazing the trail for the legalised cannabis party. Legalised cannabis is sure to ruffle feathers among those who staunchly oppose any sort of drug legalisation. That guy might get up. I don't know. We'll see. Group P. Let me tell you about Danny Lim. A much-loved anti-war hero has made quite an impact in Sydney. He's not afraid to speak his mind and express his views through his creative signs and demonstrations. Unfortunately, in November 2022, Danny sustained injuries. Okay, yep, we know about that. When I saw Danny at the Legislative Council draw last Thursday, his face was still not fully healed. Oh, wow, Glenn was at the draw. I would have loved to meet him there. He's a fascinating guy. I'd love to pick his brain. Group Q and R. The pseudo-hipsters of the Greens and the alt-light One Nation Party have much in common, being placed on the tail end of the ballot paper that spans up to Group U. It's widely speculated that each group, the Greens and One Nation, will secure 2 seats each, but my sources within the Greens are telling me they think 3 seats may be possible. Despite the recent chaos in the lower house, which resulted in 3 Shooters, Farmers, Fishers Party MPs betraying the party, it's highly probable that veteran MLC Robert Borsak will be re-elected to the upper house. I don't know, we'll see. Their civil war was pretty brutal. Group N witnesses his typical forceful entry into the election while it anticipates what his primary vote may be affected by the shenanigans within his party. Ultimately, we will likely see a fierce countenance around the parliament for a while longer. William Burke from Sustainable Australia, they're running in a lot of seats, like 80 seats. They aim to reduce corruption and halt overdevelopment, but he may not be easily found at Group S on the ballot. Currently, he's a councillor and has even the deputy mayor of the well-regarded North Sydney Council. All right. This experience may benefit him in the upcoming election. Could he finally land a seat in Parliament? All right. Now, that's it. He doesn't even mention Group U, and you guys know who Group U is. That's Ricardo and the Australia One group. He then goes on to talk about what the probable outcome is. Now, this election in the upper house, there are 21 upper house seats up for grabs. There are 21 people who are already in Parliament, and there are 21 that are up for grabs. So this is interesting because the way things are right now in the upper house, the people that aren't up for election, there's 10 right-wingers, including One Nation, the National Party, and the Liberal Party. So there's 10 of them. You've got the Shooters in the middle, and then you've got 10 left-wingers. So it's balanced right now with the Shooters in the middle. What's up for re-election is 21 new ones for the upper house, and this is what Glengarry reckons is going to happen. He reckons the Liberal National Party will get about 6 or 7 seats. He reckons the Australian Labor Party will get 7 or 8 seats, so a few more. The Greens will get 2 or 3. One Nation will get 1 or 2. The Shooters, Fishers, Farmers will get 1. What's likely, he says, is the Animal Justice will get 1. Legalised Cannabis will get 1. Possible survivalists and fighting for the last seat, he says Sustainable Australia and the Liberal, now Conservative Democrats. He says the one to watch out and to watch and upper house dark horse is the Public Education Party. I'm sure he said that for a good reason. And that's the end of the article. Now, if he's right about these numbers, which I don't think he is, it's going to be a left-wing upper house. And if the Labor Party wins government, either a minority or majority government, they're going to be able to get things passed. 70% of people haven't yet cast their vote yet. So this can still change. So I encourage you, if you haven't already, remember to go volunteer at a polling booth with one of the 6 Freedom people that are running in the upper house. But also remember to share the Turning Point How to Vote cards with everyone because they back all 6 Freedom people in the upper house. That's at tpaust.com.au. There's 70% of people that haven't yet cast a ballot yet. So when I look at this, he reckons the Liberal National Party will only get 6 or 7. I don't know. I reckon they might get at least 7. But if they only get 6, it's because the One Nation pick it up. He says ALP gets 7 or 8. I reckon that's a bit high. Probably 7 max. He reckons the Greens will get 2 or 3. I reckon only 2. But if they do get a third, it's because they get it off Labor. One Nation, he reckons, only gets 1 or 2. I reckon One Nation will get at least 2, maybe 3. And if the preference flows from the other minor parties back One Nation, then who knows? Maybe they might get a 4 by some miracle. But I reckon 3 maximum for One Nation. The Shooters, Farmers, Fishers, it's going to be tough. You know, they're not running in as many seats, I think, as the federal, but they've had a massive civil war and they're in complete disarray. Many of their candidates, I wouldn't say they're paper candidates, but they're definitely not as organised as the last election. So there's that. Also, in terms of what's likely, he says the Animal Justice could get 1. That is possible. And legalised cannabis could also get 1. Yeah, that's possible too. However, legalised cannabis don't have the logo above the line to help them. No one does. And he reckons a sustainable Australia, I reckon they could get one. I mean, they're running in 80 seats. That's a lot of seats. And he also reckons the Liberal Democrats, I reckon the Liberal Democrats have a very good chance of getting one up. Very good. And then he makes no mention of any other party except the Public Education Party. And so, I don't know. I don't know how Lars Shelton's going to do. He could do pretty well. I don't know how Craig's going to do. He probably won't, get more than 50,000 votes. Probably a lot less. And hopefully that flows to some of the other freedom parties. Who are the other ones? Silvana Nile, Fred Nile, no, that's not going to really do well. Milton Keynes, and I don't mean any of this personally. I don't think Milton Keynes and his group will do well. I don't think Milan in Group E, I don't think they'll do very well. I think the big contenders out of the freedom parties, it's looking like IMOP, Liberal Democrats, and then One Nation. So that's ascending order. I think he doesn't even mention Group U in this, and I don't understand why. I think people are underestimating Senor Bosi. I reckon Ricardo's actually going to do a lot better than people think. I don't think he'll get in, but I do think he's going to do a lot better than people think. And I'm just surprised he didn't even mention, Glenn Jury didn't even mention Ricardo in this article. But regardless, our how to vote cards, we back all 6 people in the upper house that are for your values. And I'm thinking One Nation needs to get 3 spots. According to these numbers, we want the balance of power. One Nation's going to need to get 3. I think the Liberal Democrats or IMOP, they're going to need to get 1. And the Liberal National Party, they need to get at least 6 or 7. Maybe that will balance the balance of power. The challenge we might have is a lot of these minor parties, they might take too many votes from the major Liberal National Party. We need them all to do well. We need them all to do well in the upper house. And so, I don't know. Look, that's Glenn Jury's article. That's his take on it. Based off that, he reckons Labor is going to end up having a minority government. And in the upper house, it's going to be a left-leaning government. I don't think so. I think it'll be probably just a right-leaning government by 1 seat. But it hangs in the balance. It's actually up to you guys. If you're out there tomorrow, handing out how to vote cards is probably the number 1 thing you could do. And sharing the Turning Point Australia how to vote card, taking a screenshot of it, sharing it to your story, to your page at the start of the day. It's the best thing you can do. And of course, becoming a scrutineer after the election count, that's that. Now, just a caveat for you guys. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m, that's when they start counting the ballots. No ballots have been counted yet. Do not freak out tomorrow night when they're counting Liberal and Labor and they're excluding the minor parties. That's called the 2-party preferred count. I like to call that the media count, the corporate voting count. It's not for you guys. It's for them. It's so they can go to sleep and they can say, oh, this is the Premier and whatever. I think that don't worry about that. What we care about is the upper house, not the lower house. We don't care who's Premier. We care about who's actually going to be the person keeping the Premier in check in the upper house. That count won't happen for at least a few weeks, up to a month, when they do the full preference flows. None of the lower house, none of the below the line voting gets counted until in the coming weeks. Tomorrow they might do an indicative count for the upper house above the line, but the priority for them is what they call the 2-party preferred count, where they take the top 2 candidates in the area and they work out, okay, who's got the higher preference, and that's that. But they do another count after that where they do the full preference flow and see who actually wins it. And so don't freak out tomorrow or in the coming days. That's what they're doing. If you haven't seen how they conduct this count, head to the New South Wales Electoral Commission YouTube page. They explained it over an hour. That's probably the best source of information. But in the meantime, if you see anything suspicious, send me an email at contact@tpost.com.au. Work hard to support your volunteers. If there's no freedom person in your area, I'm sorry. There's about 40 areas out of 90 where there was no freedom person. I tried to find people, but a lot of people were just asleep and they've sort of gone back to life and normality. Don't get angry at me. Get angry at the people in your area that didn't put their hand up. Get angry at yourself if you didn't put your hand up. And so look, I think the count will be fair tomorrow, but if it's not, if you've got evidence, send it to me. I'm a registered third-party campaigner, Turning Point Australia, so I can very easily get in contact with them and say, hey, WTF, what are you guys doing? Give this a share, get it out there. Remember to share the How to Vote cards. Volunteer at your local polling booth for your Freedom Party, and I will see you guys later. I think you're wrong, Glenn Jury. I think you're wrong. I don't think it'll be a left-leaning upper house, but who knows? You've been doing this for a long time. I just love that you're upset that you can't influence New South Wales elections as much because of the rule changes in '99. Anyway, I'll see you later, guys. God bless.